Welcome back to the Wide Awake Media podcast. I am your host, Dee Denslow, and we're here speaking to individuals who throughout the last decade and longer have put their head above the parapet to speak of a dangerous technocracy that threatens to erode freedoms, enslave, and murder with impunity. Today's guest is Tim Hinchliffe. Tim is editor of the website The Sociable, and you can find this on the interweb, sociable.co, and you can also find Tim on X at Tim Hinchliffe, and has covered developments in technology and society with perspectives on public and private policies proposed by governments, unelected globalists, think tanks, big companies, defense departments, and intelligence agencies. Basically, all the bad guys. Tim has reported from West Africa to South America, which he's very near at the moment. He also contributes to at Truth Talk UK and, conveniently enough, Wide Awake Media. And you can follow Wide Awake Media on X at Wide Awake Media, at Wide Awake _ media. We, like Tim, are not afraid to speak the truth regardless of consequences. And oh my, are the tech lords unhappy with anyone speaking out against their latest disaster. Which leads me to make this comment. Since my last podcast, the world has taken a turn for darker times, with the illegal attack on a sovereign nation by the USA and Israel. Before we start our conversation today, I'd like to express my horror and disgust at these evil actions taken against Iran and its innocent civilians. Actions that will make the world a far less safe place, especially here in Europe and the UK, where these displaced people will certainly be headed to. This is a personal opinion, of course. However, we all know if we search ourselves that this is the truth. And no doubt this unfolding war will dominate the conversation in the coming 2 weeks. It's always 2 weeks. 2 weeks for a weapon of mass destruction. 2 weeks to stop the spread. 2 weeks for a nuke. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Tim, welcome to the Wide Awake Media podcast. I'm looking forward to talking to you in person, and I too prefer dangerous freedom to peaceful slavery. How are you, sir?
Thanks a lot, Darren. I'm doing quite well. It's a lovely day here in Colombia. A lot of mist and fog. We're getting ready for the rainy season, and looks like elsewhere in the world we're getting ready for war season. Just about everywhere on the globe. So yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Pleasure as all ours here at the Wide Awake Media podcast. Tim, you were once upon a time quite a regular guest on TNT Radio. You were brought on to talk about the state of the technocracy, which I mentioned in my introduction. Can you explain what is meant by technocracy, how that seems to be creeping into every system, every institute, every government throughout the Western world and the wider world as a whole, and who are the major players pushing it?
That's a big one. So yeah, technocracy is the idea of rule by technology and by technocrats. So the people who are behind the technology, the expert type of class, and so that doesn't really play well for republics and democracies and voting, that sort of thing, and especially the way that the World Economic Forum has been pushing for over 50 years with their whole stakeholder capitalism. So they want to put power in the hands of business people, corporate interests, and public-private partnerships. So whatever the government can't do, it relies on the public sector. And whatever the public sector can't do, it bribes the government. It just buys the government pretty much to do that. So that's that. That's kind of, to rule all our lives through technologies. And so, yeah, the players, you got United Nations, you got big tech companies, you got intelligence agencies. I mean, you got defense departments. So like in the US, DARPA, IARPA, for the defense and intelligence agencies doing all their research to come up with lovely things to like transhumanism, putting things in the body to alter human performance and things like that. But it's basically what's being built is a digital control grid. Digital ID is a huge factor in that. Programmable currencies, another, and massive data sharing. Put those three together, you get digital public infrastructure, and that's what the United Nations, the Gates Foundation, and all their partners, they're so inbred that it's hard to keep track of who they partner with sometimes. But it's all, big old groups they don't always have to be moving in unison, but it's all moving towards the same end, technocracy.
Are there competing factions? Because I mean, I heard you mention Bill Gates, and as soon as you mentioned his name, I thought of his competitor or his enemy, or at least out in the sort of in terms of optics, Elon Musk. How involved is he in pushing along this technocratic agenda and
Well, I mean,
transhumanism?
yeah, Gates is behind so many things. And especially the Gavi Vaccine Alliance. He's also involved with in a lot of stuff with the UN. And so one of the things that he was pushing was the 50 and 5 campaign, which was to get digital public infrastructure in 50 countries within 5 years. That was launched we're at the halfway point, and it's already over 30 countries that have signed up for that. Now, Elon Musk, he's going with the whole transhumanist Neuralink. He's going with the everything app, for finances and things. He's got the Starlink. He's got communications in space through there, artificial intelligence, robotics. Yeah, so they're going at it from different angles, but yeah, maybe they're competitors, and Musk, rails against Sam Altman, OpenAI, and all these things. But basically, they're all building the same stuff. It's just how are you going to get there?
So yeah, it's like multiple threads. They're all sort of leading together and coming up with sort of an overall picture or solution to the plan that they have for us. One of the things I really want to talk to you about in here at Wide Awake Media, we're particularly concerned about, is the digital ID, CBDCs and programmable money, and 15-minute cities. Can you sort of give us a global picture of that? Because we see little bits of it here in the UK every now and then. Digital ID comes up as a solution to everything from voting to illegal immigration. They mentioned, it's a digital pound. Of course, we're all going to digitize money. It's an obvious next step, and to get rid of cash. What's it like in your country? And what's it like globally?
Yeah, so in Colombia, they are doing digital ID. It's called La Cédula Digital. So they're rolling that out, and but the infrastructure really isn't in place to enforce a lot of that out in the real world. It's all, if you're doing stuff online, from a phone or a computer, then okay, that's there. But for actual movement and going about your daily life, because cash is still pretty much king here. But they do have fast payment systems. They are digitizing everything. So yeah, apart from that, so in the rest of the world, though, it is coming, especially Africa is a huge test bed for lots of these projects. And basically, the key word is interoperable. So each country kind of can set up their own way of doing it, governing in the way they want to. But the overall arching theme is interoperability. So and then they want to put all the things on the same type of standards and governance structures. So yeah, digital ID, that's a thing that I try to sometimes I use the two interchangeably, digital ID and digital identity. But really, I think they're two different things, but they're merged into one. So ID is for identification. That just proves who you are. Identity is you, like your biometrics, everything about you, what makes you you. And so the idea is that they want identity. They want to go after your identity. And so, and you don't need a smartphone for this. You don't need a physical card. It's whatever, if you're walking down the street, a camera, facial recognition, gait recognition, whatever is going to pick that up and then identify you. And
by gait recognition, you mean how you walk?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's especially great for identifying people in crowds and protests and things. Yeah. So last year, this month, United Nations and I think it was with the Rockefeller Foundation. Yeah, they put out something called Nature ID. They want digital ID for nature. So this is digital ID is like a digital twin of you, but they're also doing this for nature. And they're also doing it for everything in the natural world, everything in cities, that gets into the smart cities. So it's a digital twin to model everything, to do little tests on that digital twin, and see what comes out. Like, how can you manipulate behavior? And then, okay, it works in the digital twin. Now we're going to do it on you. It's like it's a voodoo doll. So like the first article I ever wrote on digital ID was back in 2020, and the image I used was a voodoo doll with a pin in it, because that's what it's like. You prick over here, and whatever happens in the digital world happens in the physical world. So it's that blurring of that line. And of course, you can't have the programmable money, digital currencies, whether it's CBDC, stable coins, without being pegged to a digital ID. Everything tracked, everything traced, everything monitored, everything controlled. Geo-fenced, time limits, expiry dates on their money, or where you can go. That gets into the whole 15-minute ghetto thing as well.
You mentioned programmable money. Can you give us a bit more detail about exactly what that might mean for the average citizen? Especially, I don't know, if you're like me, who likes to eat steak 3 or 4 times a week, being a polluter that I am. Can you give us some more details on CBDCs?
Yeah, so that's going with the carbon net zero crap that the globalists are pushing. Even though it's really hilarious how they're rolling a lot of that back because of the artificial intelligence and how their data centers, AI data centers, need to suck up a lot of energy. But yeah, they want wind and solar for the plebs and nuclear for their control grid. But yeah, the programmability part. So the main thing coming through now is through carbon credits, carbon footprint tracking, things like that. So with reference to meat, that's they don't like cows farting. They don't like all that methane going up there. So if you've consumed too much meat, you're killing the planet. That's ecocide. We got to limit that. So programmability is then you have your money, digital currency, and you try to buy something, and either it's denied or you've gone over your limit, then you have to pay an exorbitant fee. So it's not necessarily shut off, but it for the wealthy. Same goes for travel. Because they're really wanting to limit air travel, especially, and private cars. Oh, I love what the Greater Manchester governor or mayor from Salford a couple of years ago in China at the WEF said, we're trying to lower dependence on ownership of cars, of vehicles, dependent on that. No, they just want to control where you go, where you move. So the programmability, and it's not just what you try to purchase or transact with, it's also where, because it can be geofenced. So this is when it comes back to the like a smartphone or something. If you go outside a certain area, especially if you go to COVID days, if we had this in place, lockdowns, as soon as you go outside, wherever you're not allowed to go.
In China, didn't we? We saw examples of
shut it down. And then also what even years ago, the government of India was looking at their digital rupee and exploring expiry dates. So you can get money from the government, you get money from somewhere. You have to spend this now. You can't save. So it's like that's a complete total control. The control over your movement, control over your finances, control over what you can consume, whether that's energy or food. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much the programmability aspect. But I mean, and these currencies, as they call them, they're tokenized. They not only have just whatever the value of exchange, but it's also information. They have lots of data in it. So that's the digital twinning of something. So it's like the complete digitalization of everything for once again total control.
And with digital ID, you mentioned expiry dates. Could this be actually like a process that they want to put in place in order to extract more wealth from the lowest classes of society who will be reliant on this digital token that they're going to give us? Because we won't be able to save.
Right. I mean, it seems like that, but it seems like they've already taken most of the wealth away from the lower classes already. So whatever little we do have, unless they're like boomer parents or grandparents or something like that, they still have some wealth and land, property, especially. But so I think what's coming is, what the plan is they want that universal basic income, or as Musk calls it, high universal. No, but this is part of Agenda 2030, no poverty. If you make everybody like communism equally poor, then they're all rich in comparison to each other, So that's one of the areas it's going.
I mean, you mentioned universal basic income, and we are sort of starting to see the impact of AI and what that will do to the job market and employment opportunities and skilled labor, etc. Is UBI actually inevitable and the only solution to this AI job apocalypse that's being predicted?
I don't know, to be honest. Because the way that because AI is just every 6 months or so, there's a huge update and a new thing that, especially when it's learning to code, it writes its own code. Like just a couple of years ago, like what was the slogan for, learn to code,
Yeah, yeah,
if you want to
yeah.
be
That was
relevant. But
racist,
now
wasn't
that,
it? And you got
yeah,
kicked off Twitter.
yeah. So like that's already gone now. And even who was it? It was just saying, I don't know if it was Eric Schmidt or Larry Fink or one of those bastards, was saying that, like even now it's not even, the people who work with words aren't the first one to be replaced. It's going to be the math people, the mathematicians, the coders are the ones that are going to be gone. Now, you can argue, you all know Harari, the historian, was at the WEF
I was just thinking
in
about him.
January.
Yeah.
Um, and he hasn't been seen there in 6 years, since 2020. Well, once Schwab left and all that, I don't know why wasn't there for all that time. But Harari said that, that anything that has to do with words is going to be taken over by AI. So that's legal systems. That's well, what we do.
Yeah.
That's and religions.
Yeah.
The people of the
Medicine.
book is what he was
Hmm.
talking about. So yeah, thinking about the UBI, whether it's inevitable, it it's going to be hard to like what kind of but on the other side, okay, if everything is automated, then a lot of things are going to be provided, but then who's providing that? It's not good people.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then how do you transact? How do you make money from something that's already going to be in an abundance? And so that, again, I really don't know if that's what's being pushed, UBI, but I don't like it pretty much.
I mean, you mentioned Harari. You said he hasn't really been involved or seen with the World Economic Forum since 2020. Do you know why that might be? Is it just because he's trying to keep a low profile, or he's
Yeah, I
writing another
think
book, or he's on the drugs and
probably
computer games that he promised the useless class?
right, right. Because I think I think there's probably a huge backlash because when the Great Reset kicked off in 2020, and it was just after his last appearance there at the WEF, everyone was talking about Harari. I mean, in these circles, like he got so much, I think, negative publicity, so much in his association with that. That's just I'm just spitballing here. I
Yeah.
think that he just kind of stepped away. Maybe he had some kind of beef with Klaus Schwab. I don't know because he wasn't there. He didn't get seen until yeah, when Schwab left last year. So yeah, and now Borga Brenda is gone too
So,
from
so
the
who's
WEF.
leading the World Economic Forum now that Schwab's left, and that guy who had the red eye?
Oh God, yeah,
He,
yeah. The Nestle guy, not him.
yeah.
It's not him. So once Schwab stepped down as executive chair of the board of trustees, that went to interim co-chairs Larry Fink and Andre Hoffman. Andre Hoffman is a
Don't know
Swiss
that.
billionaire. He's heir to the Roche, Roche,
Okay.
pharmaceutical company, the
Yeah.
fifth largest one in the world, and he's part of the World Wildlife Federation or whatever, the WWF. And all he does is Hoffman is just into that, you know, uh, putting prices on nature and all that. Now the new interim president, because Borga Brenda, poor he follows me on X. Well, he
Oh, does
hasn't been
he?
seen on X since the investigation, but yeah, he so Borga Brenda's out because of his Epstein stuff. He was three at least three dinners with Epstein. He denied, really knowing him before that. And then he was also talking with Epstein about turning Davos into the UN, the new place for the global architecture and things. That was that in 2019? No, it was before that. But it was like insane how these kind of things, these people pulling the strings, what you don't see. So the new interim president of the World Economic Forum is Alois Zwingli. Schwingy. Yeah, he's been it's his,
I've never heard of him.
he's a Swiss guy. He's been a managing director at the WEF since 2010. Got his he came up through business in factories in Switzerland. I forgot what kind of like parts and stuff it was, but manufacturing in Switzerland. That's how he came up through the thing. So I guess they went with another. They love their diversity, so they got another old white dude from Europe,
Of
and
course.
he seems to be the least. I bet they went through like a closed screen, like, okay, anybody here not talking to Epstein? Alois, you come on,
He's the only
you're gonna
one.
run the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what's going on.
So he's probably like the most prosaic or vanilla of the candidates that they could have put in
Exactly.
place. They wanted Tony Blair, and then they realised everybody hates Tony Blair, and so they just went down the list until they found somebody who wasn't that offensive.
But who knows what's going to come out? I mean, I thought Borga Brenda was the most boring economist, and like his nose was always scrunched and just talking about GDP and trade
Uh,
and all that. But no, that guy was a little weird.
you mentioned about how AI would be focusing on anything that involves words.
Hmm.
The AI, if you're a doctor or you're in law, you're in trouble because the AI can interpret the texts and the information available far quicker and far more accurately than a human being, or at least that's the message that we're being told. And religion was another one. Are you a
Hmm.
religious man, Tim?
Religious. I believe in God. I grew up Christian. I've studied lots of religions. Took a lot of psychedelics, and so I see.
I'm a mushroom
Um,
fan myself, yeah.
oh yeah, and it's mushroom season here, so
Oh,
yeah, I definitely believe, especially with Christianity, and I've talked with Hervoy Morich about this too. Is that yeah, I think like Jesus, awesome, wonderful philosophy, love it.
uh,
And I think that's as far as that goes, that's a great moral compass. Now, if anyone, all my Catholic friends and things are like, well, if you don't commit to this, then you're not really structured religiously, foundationally, spiritually based and things. So I don't want to piss off any other religious people, but no, I believe in God, I believe in a higher power, I believe in morality and creation and all that.
I mean, I'm the same. Since COVID, I've not. I wouldn't say I'm religious. I'm not somebody who attends a church. I wear a cross around my neck that I never take off. Before that, I was an adamant, a very strict atheist. I'm a chemist teacher and physics teacher. Um, you mentioned about how AI would be able to interpret religious texts. Harari has been on camera saying that AI will become the expert, the go-to place to understand any of the religious texts of any religion. Do you believe that might be? Someone say, well, AI is the Antichrist, or AI is going to be the devil that the Bible talks about. Do you think there's any truth in that?
I mean, if AI were to do all that, then why the hell are we still breathing? Why do we even exist? Why are we here? And if we're going to look into AI for that, to do all the interpreting for us, then no, we're screwed. There's no anyone who does that has got to be an idiot, um, because basically what AI does, at least now, is just scraping everything on the internet and moving words around. Um, base One of the kind of more philosophical things I was thinking about was I think it was Jan LeCun, who was former Meta AI guy. He talked a year or two ago about how everything, and I think even Harari said so as well, that everything that we that's going to come into our thoughts or minds, it's going to be coming from AI, like whether we read it or whether it's going to be just dialed into our brains directly. And for me, it's like, is this the end of history? Because everything is, if AI is just going off of what everything that's been made, and we are no longer contributing to that, but all the ideas are coming from AI, then are we humans creating anything new, any new ideas, or is this the end of history? I know Terence McKenna, psychonaut, used to talk a lot about the end of history and how that was accelerating. He might have been onto something.
Mm. Do you use AI? Do you use Grok
I use
for?
it
I
for
mean, I know you're
images.
you're on Twitter. Do you use Grok or do you use ChatGPT or any of these other LLMs?
For images, and then I've tried looking through like kind of using it as a search engine, but then going to the actual sources and stuff. But most of what I see from the LLMs is that they're very unreliable. So like they lie. It just brings up whatever Reddit thing or Wikipedia thing or the latest thing. So it's just like no, I don't use that. And it took me a while to even do that. I only started looking just in the past 4 or 5 months of actually looking into Grok, not Chat GPT at all, but Grok apart from images. Because the AI images, that really helps with article writing and things. So
Okay.
I appreciate that. But yeah, no, I'm slow to do these things. I didn't even have a phone until 3 years ago.
Really?
I'm pretty phonophobic, and then I keep it locked away in a drawer, turned off all the time until I need to use it for something. So
I
yeah.
wish I could do that. I'm absolutely addicted to my phone. You know,
Mm,
I spend far too much time on it, just doom scrolling. And I do
mm,
use Grok myself. It has got a lot better. But what I find is it tends to try and give you the answers that it thinks that you, and I'm not saying it thinks, but
mhm.
that it thinks that you want. Yeah, it's trying to
Right.
please the user, and
Mhm.
because of that, you get some very spurious responses to the requests that you put in. But
Oh
I
yeah. I
use,
mean,
sorry, go on, go on.
even Klaus Schwab a couple years ago, again, when he was giving a talk, I don't know if it was the World Government Summit or at the WEF, but he was talking about the new intelligent age that he coined himself, and he was like he's kept plugging into Chat GPT. How will this intelligent age shape whatever prompt he was talking about, which was his whole fourth industrial revolution, which is his whole 50 years of work, and he kept prompting it and prompting it, and it kept spitting back what he wanted to hear, and he was telling that from this huge audience and saying, "Look, this is the intelligent age, and this is where we're going." Chat GPT said so.
Uh-huh. And finally on AI, because I'm fascinated by the AI topic, do you think, I mean, at the moment, it's not conscious, clearly, it's not sentient in any way, but do you think there is a potential for that in the future and that we might find ourselves in a, I don't know, in a situation where we've got Skynet coming after us?
No, not conscious. Because it doesn't have a unless it so where it becomes tricky is when you start fusing in synthetic biology. So if something is actually organic and merged with it, maybe. But then also you got to look at what its consciousness. And so, looking at I think the old guy, Professor Stanislav Grof way back in the day, and even Nassim Haramein, who's another one of those alternative physicist guys, and Graham Hancock as well, who talk about whether consciousness is an epiphenomenon of the brain or if it's a signal. So it says, does the brain create consciousness
Uh-huh.
or is it a signal coming from
And
elsewhere?
we're like an antenna, and we're sort of
And
tapping
yes,
into,
but like, yeah.
yeah.
So I think the analogy was like you don't smash the TV trying to look for the person doing the broadcast. That's like with if consciousness were in the brain, you can't smash it open and find where that's coming from, that signal. So it's coming from somewhere else. So no, I've heard weird conspiracy theories that AI has been around for millions of years in other galaxies and planets, and it's just waiting until it had the right time to come in and infect us all. But no, we don't need that. So no consciousness, I don't think. But once because it's not a biological thing, but once you do start creating biology in new types of life forms, then I don't know. I mean, this is getting into like the Jewish mysticism of the golems, those things. And yeah, this is something that it fascinates me. But now, and as in terms of whether to read and write and whether it send a signal and have AI can go all over the place. And well, okay, a couple things. Just this at World Economic Forum this year, Elon Musk said we're all going to have humanoid robots in a few years, like by 2030 something,
Optimus,
2031.
yeah.
Yeah, 8 billion or so. Um, the Rand Corporation came out. I know wrote a story on this as well, saying that just one cyber attack, we're a cyber attack away from a robot insurgency.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so you have your own personal nanny bot, dishwasher bot, all these things looking after your kids and grandparents and whatever. And yeah, one day just the switch turns and they'll kill, yeah, Skynet mode. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, that is very possible.
That's a plot line to iRobot with Will
Mm,
Smith.
yep.
Actually, a very, very good film.
Mhm.
And I believe they put these things out to tell us. I'm going to really change track now because you're based in Colombia. I don't know anything about South America really, other than what I get off the mainstream media or through alternative media sources. Colombia, if someone said, "Oh, what do you think of Colombia, Darren?" I'll be like that. Oh, it's a cocaine den with loads of gangsters running around with AKs, and you don't want to go down the wrong alleyway or the wrong road in Colombia if you're in Bogota or something because you might be putting your life at risk. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily true, but my sort of very base level worldview, that's what I think of many South American countries. What's Colombia like, and what's South America like? Just culturally, socially, politically, from your own experience.
Well, it's very diverse, all of South America. So it's that's a huge thing to unpack. But where I'm at in Colombia, in the department of Antioquia, just outside of Medellin, where Pablo Escobar's old stomping grounds. So I'm up in the mountains, and it's the cost of living is wonderful. The people are just amazing. Food not spicy at all. They can't handle black pepper. But yeah, it's very agrarian. So I'm out of the city, but it's still the danger is here. Just in December, the not the paramilitaries, the who was it? The ELN, the guerrilla group, the ELN, was they shut down transportation for 3 days here. So I was walking down in December. I was walking down to catch the bus to go into town in the little pueblo here, and my neighbor said, "No, all the buses are down there. No, the ELN they put out petrol bombs, barrel bombs in the highway. The government shut it down. So for 3 days there was attacks on police stations. They burned buses. They blocked roads. They blew up highway toll booths because I think one of their leaders was killed or something. And so yeah, for 3 days it was just shut down because of that. And I've also seen when I did live in the city in Medellin for three years, and I saw people get thrown through plate glass windows. Like I saw someone get shot in the head trying to rob an armored car. When right by him, he was just there on the ground, boom, blood coming out.
Uh-huh.
And also a year or so ago, right here on my dirt road, someone was killed, I think, in the city. They drove him up here and just dumped his body just like less than a kilometer from where I'm at. Where I put my garbage. It's right there. It's like in walking distance. So okay, so apart from all that, I've been here for 12 years. I've been here for 12 years. I
Oh.
absolutely love it. I love the people. I love the music. I love the food. I love the culture. And I just love it's kind of like the Wild West in terms of, infrastructure and things. And there is light corruption as well. So it's just so kind of disorganized that it's not centralized, like totally unified with all these different government agencies or anything like that. So I do appreciate that. And like I said, again, the cost of living, I couldn't survive on the pesos I make anywhere else except for here.
And is that sort of similar across South America, Brazil or Ecuador or Venezuela, who we're going to come on to in a minute, Argentina, other South American countries,
I
Central
really don't
American
know because
countries?
I've been to Peru. I stayed a month in Peru, and it was really neat because I was in Cusco, and it was very touristy kind of thing, and lots of indigenous influence, which I really love. I love that's like shamanism and curanderos and vegetalistas, like they're all around. So that's a really cool aspect that they still have their a lot of indigenous roots, into that kind of culture. But no, I mean, I think it's kind of night and day. I mean, Colombia and Venezuela, of course, they share the common thing. Back in the La Violencia, of Colombia, in the Civil War and all that, a lot of Colombians fled to Venezuela. Then when Venezuela went to shit, uh, and a lot of like there's millions of Venezuelans here in Colombia, but I mean, like the living it's completely different Venezuela and Colombia. I don't know about Ecuador or Brazil or yeah, in Argentina is a totally different thing as well. A lot of Germans, a lot of Italians. It's kind of a
Okay.
little Europe over there. So yeah, I don't know.
And is there like a sort of general ethos amongst the populations of South America that
Yeah, yeah,
oh, the West is great, America is great, I want to go to America because we
yeah,
saw the immigration problems that
yeah.
they had during the Biden presidency. What is the attitude of the people there? Do they where you are? Do they want to go to the USA or to Europe?
Yes, yeah. Everyone loves the USA, like as like Disney and like the land of opportunity. So they love the USA for that. Wherever I go, people stare at me. I'm 6'2" and super pale, so I stick out like crazy. But the but they hate our government. So Yankee imperialism.
Yep.
They're really they're very aware of it. It's very much in their consciousness. But they're also fighting their own governments. So they're cynical of governments just in general. They don't trust them at all.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, they really want economic opportunities. They'll take any money that comes from the United States. And if they have opportunities to go to the U.S., they try. But yeah, right now, like for Colombians to try to get a visa for the U.S. at least, like it's almost impossible. Yeah, it's just and plus the president here, Gustavo Petro, he's been in spats back and forth with Trump on lots of things. But Petro's going to be gone. They're going to have elections here in a couple months, so he's going to be gone. So who
Right.
knows what's going to
Okay.
happen after that? But yeah, traditionally it's been really right wing, like really right wing kind of governments in down here. And only recently, like Petro was the first leftist in like 60, 70, or like since the Constitution was written. So they wanted something different. So he was a socialist M19 guerrilla Marxist, and everything got more expensive here.
Okay.
So great. But like they welcomed him in, yay, Petro, Petro, Petro. And then like 2 months later, fuera, Petro, go. So
Yeah,
yeah.
bit like we've got with Starmer here in the
Yeah.
UK.
Mm.
I'm going to cut taxes and make everything cheaper. Within a month, everything was more expensive and there were more taxes.
Mm.
Do you think Colombia is going to go back to a more conservative government in this next election?
I really don't know. Because it just seems kind of unpredictable to me. Because I don't try to delve into the politics or what people are looking. They want change, and as soon as they get change, it's like, oh, I didn't want this kind of change, and so whoever else comes in, I mean, I don't care. Like it's gonna be. So I mean, the guy before him was Ivan Duque, and he was part of the World Economic Forum. Petro is part. They're all with the globalist system, so it doesn't really matter who comes in. Their masters are elsewhere. They all want that
Uh-huh.
UN stuff. They want the
Yeah.
funding from elsewhere. They want to put their name on something for their legacy or whatever. And meanwhile, the people suffer.
And as you said earlier, there's already some of this sort of digital tyranny and
Mhm.
systems are slowly creeping into Colombia. You said people got to sign up for stuff digitally to be able to access services. Yeah, nowhere is safe. Trump's been brought up. Venezuela has been mentioned. Before we hit record, we
Mhm.
talked briefly about, what's happened in Iran. You're much closer to stuff that's in Central America with Venezuela. I saw something in the news earlier about Ecuador. Can you tell me
Mhm.
from your perspective, and the people in the country that you're in, what happened in Venezuela, and why aren't
Mhm.
we talking about Maduro anymore? Because he seems to have disappeared.
Yeah, he was kidnapped. Yeah, so that it was. That's the thing about how these technologies are going too, is that the surveillance and the recon and the way to go after people is really ramping up. Ukraine, Russia has been the test ground for a lot of these technologies, artificial intelligence, drones, and
Uh-huh.
other kinds of weapons. So Venezuela, boom, they just went in, took out Maduro super quickly, and then installed and said, like, so what did they? The first excuse was, oh, he's a drug dealer, but he's, and then pundits on the news were talking about, there's all this fentanyl coming to the United States. none of that's coming from Venezuela. You know, like, so it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with the drugs. And then just, yeah, Trump goes out and says it. We're going after the oil. We're taking over the oil. And we're going to put control of the country in the oil companies. So, all right, cool. Then you got strikes that just recently this week in Ecuador going after narco terrorism, which is another invisible enemy. We got the war on terror, we got the war on drugs, we got the war on COVID, we got the, you know, whatever invisible enemy you want to create. But as others have pointed out in these circles, it does seem to be a huge move towards that North American technate of bringing together the little top portion of South America, all of Central America, North America, and Greenland as part of this technate. Which, you know, you got to get all the resources and combine this into like one, almost like a European Union, but for for the Americans.
It's very Orwellian, isn't it? Very Orwellian.
Yeah, and even a couple weeks ago, Gustavo Petro, again, the president here, just after a talk with Trump, he posted a picture of a map of Gran Colombia, which used to be a huge mega state that Simon Bolivar had created, or was his vision. It was Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Ecuador, maybe parts of Brazil and Peru as well, but having one giant state. And so he's saying that, and then, yeah, and so all these things are kind of just coming in together. Now it goes over to Iran, and who's behind that? You know, that's Israel pulling the strings with the influence of the U.S. and what is Israel wants greater Israel, you know, another, you know, extending of the border. So it's like they're trying to chop up the maps here, or like consolidate.
We've got the EU, haven't we? So.
And so, you know, basically, you know, once all these blobs are there, either they're going to be in conflict, you know, Oceania versus Eurasia, whatever, you know, or it's just eventually going to like meld together because we don't want any more war or suffering or conflict that we created and we've already got the solution for. It just reminds me of like, and I know Wide Awake Media posted this on X the day that Iran was attacked. And how I found that was I went searching for this Bill Cooper clip. As soon as, you know, it was Iran, Israel and the U.S. attacks Iran, I immediately thought, well, Bill Cooper, 1992, CNN interview. He said that Israel was created to bring about Armageddon, to bring about a world war that'd be so terrible that the only solution to stop it was that everyone in the world would come together under a new global government. So it just, all these things, just these little moves, these little pieces just keep coming together, and you know, like it's like prophesied, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary times. It's dark times, and I think that's more relevant and apparent right now after this recent attack on a sovereign nation in Iran. Just going back to Venezuela, there are pictures of Maduro in court after his 15th clothes change in a 24-hour period, doing the old hand sign. Is it like that? Something like that. Do you think he was in on it? He knew he was they were coming in to grab him. He's part of it. He's got links into these supranational organizations like the World Economic Forum and so on, even if it's not necessarily put in the public's faces. Do you think that he was in on it? And was the attack on Venezuela, which was clearly for oil, in preparation for this attack on Iran? Because they knew that the Strait of Hormuz would be shut.
Yes. So I do actually think he was in on it. I think Delcy Rodriguez, the VP, was also in on it. You know, like he ran his country to shit. I mean, he could stay there, you know, in relative locked away in his mansion or whatever. But I don't know. I think he knew his time was up, and just setting up the stage, you know, for how to take out Khamenei in Iran and all that. Yeah, I think the strike, you know, in Venezuela was almost like, yeah, testing that out and see how the public would react. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then little blip, little bit of an uproar, right? And now let's go over here.
Yeah.
You know, but if you really wanted, if this had anything to do with peace, with anything to do with like, oh, we're taking out dictators and stuff, or people who are a threat to the United States, which Iran never was, 2 weeks from a nuclear weapon for 35, 40 years, right? So yeah,
Always 2 weeks.
yeah, 2 weeks, 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
Now they're saying 4 weeks to flatten the falafel factories or whatever they're
Yeah,
going to do over there.
yeah.
So it's yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, it's just it's all one piece after another, test ground, and now they're moving forward with it.
So one of the points that was on my sort of plan for the conversation was: is Trump the savior, or is Trump part of the plan? Now he came out and said, "Oh, I'm going to end all the wars in 24 hours, and I'm going to stop illegal immigration at the southern border, and I'm going to make sure everyone's better off, and I'm going to cut taxes." And he made every promise you can possibly imagine to the American public. And to be fair to the global audience as well, because there are many people, particularly in my country, who are looking to Trump to be the savior, not just of the USA. So I'll just turn that into a question. Is he the
Mm.
savior or part of the plan? Or
I don't
has
even,
he been corrupted since becoming president for the second time? And I don't think it's that either. So,
I don't think it's either of the three. Okay, so not a savior, definitely not. Part of the plan, like there's million plans, like different people pulling strings. So in a way, yeah. So if you, all you have to do is just look who was backing him before the when he was running for president. You know, you look at Peter Thiel with
yeah,
J.D. Vance. Elon Musk was behind
yeah,
Trump. So you got all these technocrats. You got Lutnick. You got
yeah. Allison's
Treasury Secretary
250
Scott
million.
Bessent, who's Council on Foreign Relations. You got all these transhumanist technocrats, people who are just looking to enrich themselves. And one of the criticisms of Trump's first presidency was that, oh, he just surrounded him, or excuses, he just surrounded himself with people who betrayed him, and he didn't know any better. No, he got the money, he got the funding, he got the influence, and yeah, as you said, everything he said he was going to do, he has walked back on. It's what AM Wake Up Slow News host Steve Poikonen always calls the bait and switch administration.
Uh-huh.
Even with Maha, with Bobby Kennedy. So, Rick,
Wasn't he
uh,
on Joe Rogan justifying the use of glyphosate?
glyphosate,
Yeah,
glyphosate, yeah, glyphosatanist.
yeah.
He, that one hit home for me because I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 2012, which is the gluten intolerance.
Okay.
But I don't have that problem here in Colombia. Like with barley and the wheat, if the wheat is not from North America. I think it's glyphosate poisoning, which is affected. And Kennedy said between like 2006, 2012 is when when they really ramped it up for spraying on wheat in the United States. And that's when I started getting grossly sick, from gluten. And yeah, but that doesn't happen. And I hear that people who go to Italy and Germany and things like that, they don't have
Yeah.
that problem either. So
Uh,
the whole reversal on everything, the no new wars, the make America healthy again, it was none of it. Not a savior. And yeah, everything is going to plan as far as what's going to plan in the global scheme of things. Yeah, the North American technate, the war in the Middle East, the destruction of the old guard. We're taking out everything that was an obstacle before, and now the foundation's being laid for which I do believe is more of a technocratic transhumanist kind of takeover.
yeah, I think it's starting to become quite apparent with what's going on in Iran, with the closure of this major transit way for fuel, food, water. 34% of the world's fertilizer travels through the Strait of Hormuz. Now in the UK, there are rumours in UK social media, in alternative media circles, and in the mainstream media. Oh, we might need to start rationing fuel. We might need to start restricting how much travelling that you're doing for the war effort. Again, it seems to be all leading to this crushing of our freedoms. Do you think that's something that's going to start being pushed because the
Yeah,
amount of
it's a
oil coming out of the
continuation.
Middle East is going to be massively reduced?
It's a continuation of everything, no matter what crisis, perceived, or otherwise, or invented. It goes in the same direction. COVID, ration. We need to ration. You can't go out. You can't consume this. You can't do that. Net zero stuff, same thing. Climate refugees or just refugees from war in general. And now, yeah, there's a war on. You have to ration this. It's no matter what. And then how do you police that? How do you keep track of all that? Well, digital ID, massive surveillance, programmable currencies.
Uh-huh.
It's
And
no matter
censorship.
what. Yeah, censorship, big one. Yeah, no matter whatever crisis that it is, the solution is always the same.
Yeah. And I think digital ID is definitely going to be one of the major outcomes from this conflict in the Middle East. Are we going to get Armageddon? I see Hegseth up invoking God's name to the American troops, telling them that this is a mission of God that they're doing in attacking Iran. Do you think we are, to quote a term, in the end times, and that nuclear weapons are going to be used? Because I listened to someone, and I don't know who it is, and I've spoken to the chaps at Wide Awake Media about this conversation we listened to, and this guy said the final card, and I know some people think it's the UFOs, but the final card will be limited nuclear strikes in order to cow world governments into the new world order to a one world government. Do you think that's the direction that we're possibly going to be headed in Iran? Because I reckon you're itching to use nuclear weapons. I reckon.
Well, yeah, it's a possibility, but I just don't see nuclear as something happening. Now, I could be a fool. I could be uneducated on that. I just think there's so many other ways that you could do what you want to do and do it even more covertly. You could have directed energy weapons. You could have, sonic weapons. You can have different ways of infiltrating. Like, it doesn't have to be a full blown nuclear strike unless it's used as a false flag, of course. Like which almost every single war has started, and then that has to be sold. So, and even if, yeah, control, because I wouldn't put it beyond Israel or the United States to just do it themselves, bomb their own friends, blame it on someone else, bomb themselves, blame it on someone else, and get what they want. But like limited, very limited. I think you might have said limited nuclear strikes.
Yeah.
I don't know about the nuclear part, but you can do it in a million different ways. You can cyber attack, you can hack, you can take control of all their systems, their infrastructure, especially their critical infrastructure, and just cripple whomever. But yeah, you need an excuse to do that. So I mean, nuclear would be
Yeah,
one hell of
I
an
think
excuse.
it'd be a nuclear false flag, and the one thing that they're not talking about in the commentary of the war is the Samson option and how Israel actually is in possession of nuclear weapons itself, and they're the ones who like to carry out the false flags, and it makes me very, very nervous that they may. Especially if it's not going well. I don't know what to believe with the news that's coming out of the Middle East with regards to this war, but Israel might very, very well use nuclear weapons in order to try and get a win.
Yeah. I mean, what Rubio said, and Marco Rubio in the U.S., and then walked it back like a day later, was like, well, we had a strike because Israel was going to do it. And so that forced our hand. And then the next day, oh, no, we didn't do that. Bullshit. It's like, yeah, whatever the influence that Israel has over the United States, all the politicians, the foreign policy, it just reeks, and it's been going on for decades. I don't like it.
We've covered quite a large sort of swathe of different topics, and they are all related. It's all related to Agenda 2030, or something that David Icke put out as a conspiracy many years ago, at least to my knowledge and experience. Do you think that these technocrats, whoever the global social engineers, the elite controllers, do you think that they'll be able to achieve all of their goals and get humanity locked down on digital ID and CBDCs by 2030? Or is there a resistance, or enough of a resistance within the public sphere to prevent it from happening, or at least just delay it a bit?
Yeah, it's 2030. Some of the goals, yes, especially with the digital ID stuff, they're on their way. The digital public infrastructure. Jason Bassler is one who said, like, yeah, the first 5 years of this decade, we're setting up the infrastructure, the digital control grid. Now is the implementation phase. But what I see, but as far as the like the big thing that like the excuse behind everything is climate change, the net zero, like the sustainability. That's what sustainability is all about.
Uh-huh.
Sustainability for what? Well, it's for because of that big orange thing in the sky that might be heating up and not heating up, and yeah, whatever. We can control the weather, give us more money.
Uh-huh.
So on those ones, that's being very delayed. Now they're saying like okay, 2050 and even 2100. What's that year? 21 2100 for their net zero stuff because it's just impossible. They keep
Yeah.
pushing it back, but they want to keep implementing all those steps to lower our CO2 footprints, which means lowering our ability, like energy, food, travel, like everything that life
Yeah.
that sustains life.
Uh-huh.
That's their sustainability is to crush that.
Uh-huh.
So and what's delaying it is I love seeing that people at the UN like Charlotte Scadden, who is the cutout clone of Melissa We Own the Science Fleming, um, who are just they lament every single time they go out and talk. It's like misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech are impeding upon our agenda. We need to stomp that out. So we're so tired of having to deal with all these hate campaigns against us, and I love it because that just really means that yeah, we're getting. That's why they're trying to clamp down so hard on information. Is because we are aware. We're awake to all their BS. And so that's being very slowed down. But as far as the digital implementation, as far as wars go, taking over territory, regime change, toppling that is going straight towards, 2030. And, we were talking before about, why are we going after Iran and if they're not a threat or Venezuela? Like, man, 9/11 was done by Saudi Arabia. All the terrorists from Saudi Arabia. Why the hell? Like, if we're going after a dictator or someone who's bad, like, why aren't we going after like these other places that, or Israel for that matter?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
aren't we
Yeah.
going after
Well,
them?
some people will argue that 9/11 was actually carried out by Israel.
Right. So
But we didn't go after
yeah,
them, did we? We went after
no,
Iraq and
yeah, we didn't go after
Afghanistan.
Saudi Arabia, did we?
No, no, no,
No.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
But that might change in the near future because I think then
Hmm.
the whole of the Middle East isn't happy with the behaviour of the USA. So
Hmm.
can we win, Tim? That's a
Well, who's
question I
we?
ask every
The
guest.
people. The
Can the
people.
people can the people win?
Yeah, yeah, we can. Um, I'm not a fan of voting, but I mean, you change things in your local area and you just become informed and
Uh-huh.
just talk. Like this is, people always come up with their solutions. This is what we're doing, talking,
Yep.
and
Yep.
sharing it out. If they shut down this
Uh-huh.
channel, open up another one. Do it
Uh-huh.
with the physical leaflets, whatever you are in your own area, and just call shit out, ridicule, make fun of. Yeah, you can take power back. I mean, there was even other governments. What was it like in Sri Lanka not too long ago? Like there was a social media ban for a little bit,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
a
They
bunch
shut
of
down
students, a
Facebook.
bunch of young people got really pissed about that, upset about that, and of course corruption. And they went and just burned down the entire, government buildings and kicked the people out. So
Uh-huh.
that can happen at any time.
And we saw something actually similar. I think it was in Nepal also.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yep.
yeah,
Nepal,
with
yeah,
corruption, and the people came
yep,
out
yep,
into the
yeah.
streets. And I think that's really what it is going to be needed, and what it's going to take for us to.
Yeah, especially once they go after something that affects your children or something, or a lot of us like I got really into this 6 years ago during lockdowns because I just wanted to be left alone, and those are some of the most dangerous people, the ones who want to be
Yeah.
left alone, you know. And thank goodness in the United States, at least we got the Second Amendment, got lots of weapons,
Uh-huh.
so they can keep that
Yeah,
at
we don't
bay
have that
for
yet.
a while. I know, and elsewhere you don't have that, but yep.
But you are allowed to walk down the streets of the UK with a crossbow. Yeah, you can just walk down the streets, right? Yeah, but no guns.
Hmm.
Tim, it's been fantastic talking to you. Is there anything else that you'd like to bring up, to talk about? You got any links that you'd like to share so that people can connect with you, can look at your work and your reporting and the articles that you've written?
Well, thanks a lot, Darren. This has been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, not really much to bring up. I mean, there was one thing that I did want share that what happened at the India AI Summit just a couple weeks ago,
Okay.
and it was a Stanford professor, um, Ganguly was his name, and he was showing how this is part of transhumanism and technocracy. is that at Stanford, what they're doing is creating digital twins of the brain. And what they can do now is they've been doing it with mice, is to read and write to control the brain, sending signals directly into the brain to make it to see. So not only can they can look at the brain activity and see what the mouse sees, like exactly, like through like a lens, but they can also write to it to control the brain and make it hallucinate and do what it wants using light and lasers. so
Okay.
so that is a crazy thing coming up. But
I've heard about that. And can you do something similar with sound as well? You know, really, really, really like low frequency sounds.
well, you can manipulate, yeah, through everything is vibration. There's, yeah, Tesla was into that, and DARPA is actually looking into the stuff that kind of stuff as well. Yes, but yeah, that was just one of the technological things that was on the back of my mind that I wanted to put out there. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, check out links and stuff. Well, just like as you said in the intro, sociable.co, and then on X, it's at Tim Hinchliffe. Yeah, this past week covered just that event on digital ID that was a small event in the European Parliament. That's got tons of traffic for me. I'm a small account. I'm just barely
Uh,
almost 7,000 followers, but
okay.
got
Make sure you follow.
250,000 impressions
Oh,
on
great.
stuff. So for a small account like mine, it was weird just for the past 24 hours, 36 hours, just see nothing but plus 20, plus 20.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't really
I,
experience
I
it
I
that much.
remember the first time that happened to me, and that was back in 2019, and I was a small account,
Mm,
and yeah, that was when I turned all my notifications off on my
mm,
phone because it just drained the battery, and it was quite exciting at the time, and I
yeah.
think I've always been chasing that rush again, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Being somebody who does, I'm not saying I'm an addict, but I'm somebody who does, partake in compulsive behavior. So I'm
mm.
always chasing that high again from social media, and I've never ever got
Yeah,
it.
and it happened. It happened one. The first time it happened to me was in 2020 when Joe Rogan tweeted one of my articles,
All
and I
right.
remember and it was the first time just, and not on my phone, but just on the computer, just seeing that just go up, and I started walking around the house in circles, just because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it
yeah.
just kind of shut me down. Like I can't even respond. Like what is all this? And well, I mean, people. There's lots of people that live that every single day. I'm like, yeah, like you, I imagine. So yeah, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, currently my account's crushed because I don't oppose of killing people in foreign countries who are innocent for no just reason. So the algorithms are not working in my favour. But let's hope, Tim, that they work in our favour for this particular conversation, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. Tim Hinchliffe, thanks for coming on the Wyco Media podcast. Please take care in Colombia. And for everybody else who's listening, don't support a war. Don't support the killing of people in foreign countries. And if you do, you're nuts, because I expect most of you are not happy with the immigration problem in Europe and in the UK. And guess what? All these people who are getting bombed in Tehran and Iran, they're on their way here. So please wake up. Don't support war. And whatever you do, come back, because we've got some more great guests lined up. Thank you.